All right, welcome to Occult Topics with the Professor. Now, what we're about to get into is the Tarot, the key one, the Magician, and its correspondences. So first, let me start off. Welcome to Occult Topics with the Professor. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Give me them thumbs up. Or hey, like I said, I'm not an adept at this tarot. I do have I want a working knowledge, not just something I can Google or, I want it to be more personal. Not so much that I plan on doing any readings for anybody, because everything I learn is actually for myself. So, having said that, welcome. Let's get it on. I'm trying to find my full card. I was using it for a placekeeper. I was using it to, well, see, let me be honest. It's been a while. I plan to do this at the bare minimum once a week. I live a busy life. Even though I haven't doubled back with the Fool, I started with the Fool card, and we were supposed to move on to the Magician. Even though I haven't recorded in over a week, I've continued to progress. So I'm hoping that you have as well. If you're a beginner, if you're not an adeptus, a magus of the nth degree, I would hope that you are continuing to progress on your own, and hopefully I can add to that. I can definitely say that since I've begun this in terms of incorporating tarot into my understanding of Kabbalah and applying it to self, there has been a definite change in the nature of my dreams. They've been a lot more intense, especially in terms of color. And so I'm using this book right here, The Shining Paths, an experimental journey through the Tree of Life, a unique collection of magical pathworking based on the 32 paths of the Cabalistic Tree of Life. I've been using this book and a couple others just to help with these new decodes, or these new downloads that I'm getting, just to help me to decode the new nature of my dreams. But I'm looking at it through the lens of Kabbalah and the different paths, the different colors, and I've definitely seen a change. And considering that I do have some knowledge on the topic of like Kabbalah and other things, actually the little bit I have learned has made what I already know make so much more sense. So having said that, let's double back real quick on the Fool card, and hopefully you gain some new insights. I know for myself, I definitely have a better perspective of the Fool in general. Like for me, a lot of people who are far more advanced than myself in tarot say, as a beginner, I should find a character like in a movie, preferably somebody you know in real life, that embodies it, and then you kind of take the essence of that person, and then that way gives you like a visual, something concrete that you can lock on. Now, for me, I've always been a reader. Hold on one moment. I'm gonna light up some incense. Hey, Bud. Yeah. Can you bring me that lighter that's on top of the entertainment system? Yeah. Can you bring that to me? It's the green one, I believe. Yep. Now, for me, I've always been a book reader. So when I thought of like who would be the Fool, I appreciate you, man. When I thought about who would represent the Fool in terms of movies, to be honest, like sitcoms came to mind. And I'm a little older, so maybe my sitcom references might be dated. But I thought of people like Maxwell Get Smart, Inspector Gadget, even some of the roles Kevin Hart plays as a jester. He would embody the Fool in a lot of his more comical adventures. However, for me, the best representation of the Fool, I realized, came from a series of books I read back in the 80s and 90s by an author named Robert Jordan. He wrote the Wheel of Time series. I'm going to show you a couple of his books. Just to cross-reference, I know a lot of people that's into this occultism, they get real serious, and I don't read fiction. I don't have no time to make believe, but if you really think about it, this is all make believe. Let me find one of these Wheel of Time books. No, that's Star Wars. Here we go. And I'm gonna show you how much I've read this book. The back cover is gone. And this is Robert Jordan and Brendan Sanderson, Towers of Midnight. This book, the character out of the Wheel of Time series that most represents the fool for me would be Matrim Cawthon. I want to see if I got something on Matt up in here, which they should. That's what I love about his books, is that he always had a glossary in the back, but it's not a guarantee that every book had, it's not going to be a breakdown of all the characters, but I would love to read something about Matt. But Matt was the fool. His magic, he was the fool in the essence of he didn't, on the image of the fool card with the fool descending like he is and looking, well, not even descending, about to descend, but paying no mind to it. For me, that's Matrim Cawthon in the Wheel of Time series. So if you have a better, comment, let me know. I would love to, make that relation in terms of a character from a movie or a book or whatever, but that's what it was for me. And then I also, another Wheel of Time reference I'll say is Thom Maryland, because he was a juggler. And that is actually one of the previous names for the Fool card was the Juggler. Another thing that kind of impacted on me was the polarity between the Fool and the King. King wears the crown. So the polarity between the Fool and Kether in terms of Kabbalah. Otherwise, there's not much more I can think of offhand. I just wanted to double back on the Fool card. And so from there, let's get started. So the first book that we will reference for the Fool card, for the Magician, let us I like this Paul Foster case. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. So much so that I'm now partial to what he's partial to. And I don't want to pick up any of his biases. What I'll use real quick is Cabalistic Tarot by Robert Wang. And I just want to go real quick, not real quick, but let's go and see the connections he makes with the Fool card and Kabbalah, and then we'll move on to some of the other books that I have. But I keep saying the Fool. Sorry about that. The Magician card, and then we'll progress on. Okay, the Magician, 237 to 242. All right, this is Robert Wang's The Cabalistic Tarot. All right, let me get it highlighted because clearly I didn't highlight these sections. Oh, nothing. I'm just giving me a highlighter so I can mark things that catch my interest, huh? What color? I grabbed a pink one this time. I grabbed a pink one. So far, you got the yellow one? I've been using mostly yellow and green, so I try to change it up. But all right, The Path, the Magician. This is actually page 237 of the Cabalistic Tarot on the section of the Major Arcana, the Tree of Life. The Path of Beth, the Magician, the first key. Path color, yellow. Related sound, E natural. Planet, Mercury. Meaning, house. Double letter, life, death. Esoteric title, The Magus of Power. 32 paths of wisdom. The 12th path is the intelligence of transparency, because it is that species of magnificence called chazit, which is named the place whence issues the vision of those seen in apparitions. That is the, well, let me read that over because that threw me out. That is the prophecies by seers in the vision. Okay, start over. 32 paths of wisdom. The 12th path is the intelligence of transparency. So the magician represents the intelligence of transparency, because it is that species of magnificence called chazit, which is named the place whence issues the vision of those seen in apparitions. That is the prophecies by seers in the vision. So the magician card is able to see through illusions or project illusions, because you have to remember the magician, like it just said, is associated with Mercury. Mercury is a correspondence to Tahuti, but Mercury is also a correspondence to Hermes, the trickster. So you have these two, this duality, this polarity. So I get that. The path of Beth is between Kether and Binah. So let's get a good visual. I got this from Travis Mages, man. You always have these images of power around you. So we see here that the path of Beth is between Kether. Kether was right here at the crown, and Binah. So it's going to be that path right there. Or a better visual would be at the front of this book, to be honest. Robert Wang has a dope Cabalistic picture at the beginning of this book. So much so that I find myself staring at it. All right, here we go. So you see here, this is the tree of life. We have, let me keep my place right here. So what we have is, let me get us to see it. So what we have here is Kether at the top, the crown. And then it's the path between Binah and Kether. That's the 12th path, the path of the magician. And then being that Binah is on the pillar of the same pillar as Mercury, that energy descends down. So that's why we see that Mercury is directly related to that path between Binah and Kether. All right. The path of Beth is between Kether and Binah. It is the transition between the one pure source of all, energy undefined, and the great organizer. A relationship described by the meaning of the letter Beth, which is house. It is the dwelling place of the spirit descending towards the denseness of manifestation. So for me, that lets me know that the magician as a number 2 card is a correct succession from the fool to key number 1, or from 0 to 1, the 0 card to the number 1 card, or number 1 key. It makes perfect sense, because as it says here that Beth, the letter Beth means house, and it is the dwelling place of the spirit descending toward the denseness of manifestation. The magician symbolizes that which builds the house, i.e., directs and encloses the spirit, which is symbolized by the fool. Now that's big. The magician symbolizes that which builds the house. Can we think of any builders that build houses? Master builders, master masons, quite possible. I.e., directs and encloses the one spirit which is symbolized by the fool. So like I just said, it shows a clear continuation from the fool card. And what did impress upon me from the fool card was realizing that I am the fool, and this tarot is my journey through not just the 78 pages of the Book of Thoth, but through my journey here in denseness, and then rising up again to the ethers, for lack of a better word. In this regard, it must be appreciated that to consider one card versus another at this level of the tree of life is very different from a comparison of cards at the lower levels. This difference between, let us say, the universe and the path of judgment are substantial, if not dramatic. But the higher one works up on the tree, the more such differences become extremely fluid and subtle. The fool and the magician, I want to highlight this, I'm certain of it. The fool and the magician are separated by only slight degree, a fact not obvious in the anthropomorphized symbolism of the card, a fact not obvious because the fool technically is androgynous. And looking at the magician card, one would assume it's male, but again, there really is no indication of gender. But still, it says that there's only a slight degree of difference and a fact not obvious in the anthropomorphized symbolism of the card. Scholars dedicated to unravel. Somebody at the door, bud? Okay, here I come. All right, I apologize for that. I actually had some unexpected company. And by unexpected company, I mean family. My family came home and, you got to get the tea and the latest. So let's get back to it. Matter of fact, I'll go back. We were in the Cabalistic Tarot by Robert Wayne. And so I want to read this last sentence. The fool and the magician are separated by only slight degree, a fact not obvious in the anthropomorphized symbolism of the card. Scholars dedicated to unraveling the difficult cryptology of the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, are quick to point out that Beth is the first letter to be used. The book of Genesis begins Bereshit, commonly translated as in the beginning, but intriguingly rendered by Fabre d'Olivet as at first in principle. I was also told that Bereshit does not mean in the beginning, but a beginning. So first principle, a beginning, I think it's all applicable. And it says commonly translated as in the beginning, but intriguingly rendered by Fabre Olivet as at first in principle. That which is symbolized by the letter Beth is the first in creation. So the fool, spirit dropping down to matter, first creation would be the magician. That which is symbolized by the letter Beth is the first in creation. It is the beginning of the beginning. It is the first principle or first matter of the alchemist, also called the philosophic Mercury. You going, bud? All right. I want to highlight that philosophic Mercury. But to create beginning is to create end. Thus, the opposites of life and death. Key polarities of creation are attributed to the letter. The idea is implicit that without the energies of the magician, there would be neither life nor death, neither beginning nor end. The magician initiates this process, a cycle symbolized by the infinity symbol, lemniscus, that's above his head. If you look on that's why I wanted to do it on Zoom, so I can have these images up alongside so we can focus on the card as we go along. That symbol, the lemniscus, is the infinity symbol, the aurora borealis. It was also pointed out, we'll get to it in one of these books, that in certain decks, that infinity, that horizontal 8 is actually obscured inside the hair, the locks of the magician. So I thought that was real interesting, as well as the serpent which holds its tail in its mouth, Ouroboros. Both represent the closed circuit of energy in the universe, begun by the number 1, Beth, acting upon the number zero, Aleph. And I can see that because that symbol could be taken as the number zero, kind of twisted in and upon itself to give you that number 8, encompassing everything, but as well as beginning and end. The relationship of Aleph, the fool, and Beth, the magician, to creation are discussed in a section of the Zohar, which is one of the most charming in all of esoteric literature. We are told that for 2,000 years, God had contemplated the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet and had toyed with them. And when it came time for him to create the universe, the letters presented themselves before him in reverse order, Tau to Aleph, each asking that they be the first in creation. All were denied until Beth, of whom God said, assuredly, with thee I will create the world, and thou shalt from the beginning of creation. Something just hit me, threw me off. Let's go back. It says, all were denied until Beth, of whom God said, assuredly, with thee I will create the world. I've never before until this moment associated God with, well, I won't say never, but I understand the association between God and building now that we're talking about Beth, which is a house. We're talking about builders, creation. Of course, we know the house built without hands on the most mundane level would be you in your mother's womb. So we see the architect aspect of deity very clearly, I should say. Okay. Assuredly, with thee I will create the world, and thou shalt from the beginning of, and thou shalt form the beginning of the creation of the world. God then wondered why Aleph had not appeared and called for the letter, which explained, because I saw all the other letters leaving thy presence without any success, what then could I achieve there? And further, since thou hast already bestowed on the letter Beth this great gift, it is not meant for the Supreme King to take away the gift which he has made to his servant and to give it to another. God's response was, although I will begin the creation of the world with Beth, thou wilt remain the first of the letters. My unity shall not be expressed except through thee. On thee shall be based all calculations and operations of the world, and unity shall not be expressed save by the letter Aleph. So that's a very dope way to express the relationship between Aleph and Beth, as well as between the fool and the magician. Make sure my phone is on silent. Yes, it is. It is fascinating to realize that the greatest mysteries of the cosmos are such that they are well expressed in the simplest, even most childlike pictures and words. Indeed, the relationship between the fool and the magician is so subtle and refined. It's so subtle and refined that our best hope of even approaching them rests in meditation on spiritual texts combined with images of the tarot cards. And I found that that is definitely what has been impacting my consciousness and the nature of my dreams, is just by meditating, contemplating, and focusing on these cards, especially as I drift to sleep. And I've gotten in the habit now, after I noticed the shift in my dreams, I've gotten in the habit of reading until I fell asleep, just because of the nature of how my dreams have shifted. I wanted to be certain that it was this book T, this book of thought, that was impacting the nature of my dreams. And so let's go back. It is fascinating to realize that the greatest mysteries of the cosmos are such that they are expressed in the simplest, even most childlike pictures and words. Indeed, the relationship between the fool and the magician is so subtle and refined that our best hope of even approaching them rests in meditation on spiritual texts combined with the images of the tarot card. It is impossible to speak directly of what either the text or the cards represent. What we try to do is establish a circle of ideas, each idea giving a suggestion about the nature of the inner truth. That much I could totally agree upon. I'm going to highlight this. Indeed, the relationship between the full magician, so subtle that our best hope rests in meditation and spiritual text combined with the tarot cards. It is impossible to speak directly of what either the text or the cards represent. What we try to do is establish a circle of ideas about the nature of the inner truth. One such idea associated with the magician is that the energies of this card are at once active and passive. I get that because we have the as above and as below symbolism of the hands, positive and negative. The mystery of the magician is that it is both that which transmits and that which is transmitted. It is the life force, the one which becomes the prima materia in the act of transmission. The magician is a channel through which the energy of the fool is organized and passes downward. The one life energy is directed by the magician as the first step of evolution of the universe towards matter. Thus is the path called the transparent intelligence. For like light through a glass, energy passes through it from above. The process is especially well represented on the weight card, where the magician's right arm is raised with the wand pointed downward. This suggests power brought down in a purposeful, willful way. Moreover, weight makes some very subtle reference to the activity of all the supernals here. The inner color of the magician's robe is white, meaning Kether. The outer robe is the red of Binah in Absolute. And the serpent belt is the blue of Chokmah in Absolute. That is fire. And the serpent belt is the blue of Chokmah Absolute. Waite's inference is that the prima material rests from the interaction of all the supernal Sephiroth. The god of this path, Mercury, is the messenger of the gods, especially his father, Zeus Kether, meaning that he is not the creator, only the bearer of its will. For all practical purposes, I need an ink pen so I can jot me some notes in the corners as I go along. Give me one moment. Grab a pen. I should have been set up better. I like to write notes in the margins of my books because usually when I come back with fresh eyes, I have the information I was seeking, especially if I write a question. The thing that I have to get in the habit of now, and I will remind anyone listening, is if you happen to write yourself a note in the corner, do not be cryptic. Be as plain as possible, because when you come back, the note might be so cryptic you won't understand. There's no reason to encrypt your own notes, especially in your book. Even if the book somehow leaves out of your hands, then it was meant to be. I've left myself so many cryptic notes inside of books that from now on, I write it out as plainly as possible, just so I can better understand what I was getting at, or if I'm leaving myself some breadcrumbs, I can follow that down the rabbit hole. So I'm just wondering if this Mercury to Binah to the supernal triad, if that's in reference to traveling east to west, and from west to east and from east to west again. One moment. I say that because just leave myself a note for that, because we always assume or associate north with high, south with low. However, Kabbalistically, east is upwards, west is downward. So I just left myself a note for that so that I can get back to it another time. But definitely when I get back to this book again, hopefully by then I'll have found more direct answers, or this will spark me to get back on that search. For all practical purposes, Mercury, Roman, Hermes, Greek, Thoth, Egyptian are the same deity. The amalgam of their qualities having become particularly firm in modern esoteric literature. Of course, since Mercury is the latter of the gods, his attributes depend on those of Hermes and Thoth. So Mercury is actually younger than all these others, including Hermes. Hermes was very early associated with words for the simple reason that a messenger must clearly state the cause of the one who sends him. The same meaning essentially applies to the association of words with Thoth, who, as the supposed inventor of hieroglyphics, developed that by which the message could be recorded and transmitted. So there we see I see what he's getting at, because he says that the magician is actually a transmitter. He's actually both. He's actually the means of transmission as well as being transmitted. So now we see the clear-cut connection to Hermes, Mercury, Tahuti, so on and so forth. The companion of Hermes, as discussed in dealing with the Wheel of Fortune, was the dog-headed ape, the Cynocephalus, representing the words themselves, as well as the potential for misunderstanding and deceit. It is in this latter sense that Crowley has included the Cynocephalus at the feet of the mages. Okay, it's not here. Now, I want to say real quick, I know I hate to go on sidetracked and go on tangents, but years ago when I really got serious about this path and meditating, I used to receive these downloads, meditation, dream, it didn't matter. It always came to me. And there was this baboon in a brown monk's robe, and he was always trying to teach me some complicated piece of technology. One of the main things that he constantly tried to teach me was how to manifest 5D objects in the 3D reality. And it got to the point that I would sit and listen to these long, detailed lectures. We were always like in the woods. It was like an amphitheater, but it was just me, and I would be in the bleachers in the amphitheater. The baboon would be down on the platform, and he'd be explaining to me how to do it. And it got to the point where one time I just busted out. I used to stop and ask hella questions, but and the reason why the dog, I noticed, was Cynocephalus. The reason why I know it was this person, this creature, because it was a dog-faced baboon. The baboon kind of looked like a dog, and he used to like bark every now and then, like clearing his throat like a bark. And you'll find it amazing that these archetypes exist. You will encounter them. It's just mind-blowing. And I haven't had it in a couple years, that same dream. Actually, the last time I had it, I tried to explain that you got the wrong one. I'm just not that technical guy. I'm not gonna. And I think back now and say, oh wow, I just really knocked myself. And I told him, I'm not the one. You know, you're wasting this on the wrong person. So he broke it down even simpler, and he showed me how to make like a 3D hologram using like one of those fans that you might have, a little handheld fan, like a handheld fan that you would take to like a baseball game. And he had a spray bottle, and he was spraying it over the fan, and it was creating a 3D image. And that's one of the downloads that this is the only time I've ever shared it. And the only reason why is because, to be honest, I haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet. And the more I think about it, I always say, oh, I had a perfect opportunity, but I didn't have faith in self. So I actually told this energetic principle that was trying to impress upon me essentially a means to project 5D objects in the 3D reality. Mind blowing. But yes, you will encounter these things. So It's mind-blowing, and it's like confirming at the same time. Let's get back to it. The relationship of Hermes, the relationship of the Hermes energy to words is very profound. Messages are carried by words, but it's also through words of power that the magician affects his will. Thus is word associated with cause and effect. Words transmit ideas from person to person in the same way that the magician transmits the idea of self-creation of the one from above. Let's read that again. Words transmit ideas from person to person in the same way that the magician transmits the idea of self-creation from the one from above. Self-creation of the one from above. A word is meant to be spoken. Writing is the annotation of spoken thought. It is a sound which carries idea. It is the intelligence laden. It is intelligence laden vibration. Word equals vibration. So the idea of the magician is that it is the first vibration through which one spirit begins the process of manifestation. It encloses spirit and thus encompasses all that is. I want to highlight something real quick and then leave myself on the note. These last two paragraphs. And just about the nature of words. I believe he said it was it is intelligence laden vibration, and that's a good way to think of words. We actually tend to waste words. We waste words just by constantly talking. And if you think about it, it was in I believe it's in Kabbalah Magic, where Ophil states that we have to remember that the name Yod He Vahe is not a name, it is a formula. And there was always thought that if you were to utter this sacred formula, you could actually end the universe on your own, most likely. And so it's W equals Mercury. Substitute. Right. This principle is conveyed by a diagram in the Golden Dawn papers relating the Mercury symbol to all of the Sephiroth except Kether, figure 32a. The horns in this figure spring from Da'ath, knowledge, which is not properly speaking a Sephirah, but rather an experience of passage through the abyss, because Da'ath is akin to a bridge, or better yet, a tightrope that crosses a cavern. Knowledge is the only thing that'll get you across the abyss. And of course, since the days of Levi, the whole Tarot has been fancifully called the Book of Thought. What's up, bud? You back?
I just was checking on you.
Okay, it's all good. Pursuant to the idea of Mercury encompassing all Sephiroth except Kether, there is a very interesting diagram showing Mercury on the caduceus, figure 32b. Let me find these figures while I'm just reading through. Because today I got time, cuz. You feel me? Oh, here we go. Figure 32. Must be here. Let's go backwards. Figure 32. It must be coming up. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Figure. Oh. Amen. Oh, that is dope. The four. Okay. Let me see if I can give you an image of it. This is out of Robert Wang's Cabalistic Tarot. Matter of fact, let's come out of this full view for a moment. And I want to show you this just for a moment. Bingo, bingo. See if we can get a good image of it. Sure, I want to see too. Okay, you see the bottom left corner, you see the symbol for Mercury, and it encompasses the entire tree of life. You see the horns up top, but it does not touch, it doesn't encompass Kether. And then you see the caduceus encompassing the four worlds. And then we have the winged serpent at the top. So that's a real powerful image. Real powerful image. This is not at all inconsistent with the first symbol, which distinguishes between the creator above and creation below. The four worlds here are not the wand. They are that which is transmitted by the wand, the magician. So essentially by the magician holding that rod aloft, he is essentially bringing those four worlds into transmission, making it something that's accessible. I think that's dope. I think that's very dope. All right. And actually, I'm going to highlight black because it was. I'll get that whole paragraph. Pursuant to the idea of Mercury encompassing all Sephiroth except Kether, there is a very interesting diagram showing Mercury on the caduceus. This is not at all inconsistent with the first symbol, which distinguishes between creator above and creation below. The four worlds here are not the wand. They are that which is transmitted by the wand of the magician. This interpretation of the caduceus and the planetary sign is not common. Astrologers and iconographers usually analyze the Mercury symbol as half moon, circle, equal armed cross. These symbolize the moon, the sun, the balance of the four elements. The sun and the moon are dual states of the cosmos. Here, in their most refined expression, the four elements are first seen primordially in Kether, where they are symbolized by the swirling gammadion or swastika, because of course the swastika is the four elements. Each arm has the face of an ox, a man, a lion, and a bird. Four elements. I get it. Fire. The magician directs the forces of Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh, first letters first encountered in the God name of Binah. Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, at the lower end of the path of Beth. As it is succinctly expressed in the Golden Dawn documents, the primum mobile, the first motion, is acting through the philosophic Mercury on Saturn Binah, which is to say that the Supreme Spirit is acting upon will to form, because that would be Binah is the pillar of form, and Chokmah represents the pillar of force. This activity is involved with words, i.e. vibration, and recalls the idea that whoever can pronounce Yod-Heh-Vah-Heh will be master of the universe. In this same, make you wonder about the He-Man show. What was He-Man really doing on that planet bothering Skeletor? He was minding his own business. He was in search of that lost word. In this sense, pronounce means to willfully direct the vibration. So what we have in the magician is the secret to the pronunciation of the divine name. This brings us to the very complex idea, which is the essence of the mysteries, and an idea emphasized by Case in his book of tokens. I got to get that book. There he says that all created wills are but reflections of the will of the magician. Most important case points out that the individual must allow the primal will to act through him or herself. And here we have a quote: "My superior nature worketh through thee. Happy art thou if thou canst grasp this truth. For then, understanding that not thy weak self, by my all-knowing mind, looketh out upon the world through thine eyes, shalt thou have faith to let me see. Then shalt thou overcome the evil of thy senses by devoting them wholly to my use." Let me read that again. I kind of stumbled through some of those words. And we're talking about the pronunciation and the power of words. So let me double back. "My superior nature worketh through thee. Happy art thou if thou canst grasp this truth. For then, understanding that not thy weak self, by my all-knowing mind, looketh out upon the world through thine eyes, shalt thou have faith to let me see. Then shalt thou overcome the evil of thy senses by devoting them wholly to my use." This is an extremely difficult concept and one which truly represents the practical core of all religion, mysticism, or magic. However, the process may be symbolically expressed. The inner direction of the four elements by the universal magician through us is primary. Waite's card, based on the then secret Golden Dawn card, was the first to show the magician with his wand raised above the actual elemental weapons of modern Hermetic Kabbalism. On the table are the wand for fire, cup for water, the dagger for air, and the pentacle for earth. All are very generalized, but are accurate to the Golden Dawn system. I just had another revelation. I don't know why I didn't realize this, is that in the four elements, we have the pronunciation of God's name, which is most likely why you see the Yod Hey Vav Hey arranged in the shape of a man, as that is that is the eventual goal, is to become one with God, or to fully realize and manifest into your own godhood. We have come a long way from the somewhat tentative symbolism of the Marseilles deck. In the Tarot deck, the magician stands at the table, manipulating implements germane to the performer magician of the Middle Ages, whose stock and trade was sleight of hand and pleasant deception. See, that's that Hermes the trickster aspect. Yet the double-ended wand and the hat, approximating the form of the infinity symbol, suggests something more, as does the very title of the card, Le Bateleur, meaning the bearer of the wand. The wand is, in fact, the only attribute of a magician which has been consistently represented from the ancient world to present. We see that in all these movies, Harry Potter and all of the fantasy books. The magician. Then, you got it. You can close the door, bud. A magician almost always has a wand, as opposed to a sorcerer who doesn't. Wizards generally have staffs, and I think that's evident because the connection I made, because I'm big on fantasy. I showed you the fantasy book earlier. So the connection I made was magicians use the elements. That's just plain. Ma, Mother Earth, magician. So I always got magicians as using the elements, because if you also recognize, especially in the fantasy novels, magicians always carry pouches that have these elements. It might be the ear of a newt, spider's legs, cobwebs. Magicians have these items of materiality that they use to cast and conjure. And similar with witches. Then you have the next grade up would be, I would say, wizard, because sorcerer is beyond a wizard, because a wizard even still has a staff, which is an elongated wand or a rod, right? And we covered that earlier in the first episode, the significance of the rod and fire. It suggests will and light and things of that nature. It's phallic, but I would say that it could be When we say phallic, it don't mean that it has to be a penis. It's just it's an active principle as opposed to a passive principle. And then the sorcerer would use sorcerers tap into the source. Sorcerers, like wizards, have a staff, not a wand. So wizard rarely waves his staff around, but he does utter words of power. A sorcerer derives his power from the source. So sorcerers generally don't even have to say a thing. They could think it. They might even flick their finger or something of that nature, but that was the understanding I always came to in terms of wands, magicians, and things like that. So it says the wand is in fact the only attribute of a magician that has been consistently represented from the ancient world to the present. It is that through which power flows and by which power is directed with the force of will. It is at least interesting to see that Waite gave his magician of 1910 the exact same wand as the Marseilles deck of 1500. Thus did Waite affirm the symbolic value of the early instrument. Presumably, variations on the magician over the years represent contemporary states of the magical art. Judging from the magical treatises at the period of the earliest conceivable appearance of the cards, there was no great proliferation of magical instruments. In a word such as the Heptameron of Pietro de Albano, 1250 to 1370, it is clear that magic was an amplification of the priestly art. I already came to that conclusion too, because the word magi means priest. Depending largely on words for invocation, like I was just saying. Was an amplification of priestly art, depending largely on words for invocation, banishings, and the consecrations of talismans. The impetus toward the complex instruments we find on the Golden Dawn card probably begins in the 18th century, as is reflected by Barrett's Magus of 1801. Accepting that each version of the magician represents the point of view of an age toward what is called magic, the Crowley card is provocative in that the version of the magician no longer merely holds the wand, he is the wand, and a conceptual change of no small dimension. Crowley thus has accurately represented what we earlier described as the mystery of the magician, i.e., that it is at once that which transmits and that which is transmitted. It is the messenger and it is the message. There is also an important phallic symbolism in this wand of Hermes, because remember, Hermes is a hermaphrodite. There is also an important phallic symbolism, but I say that not as any knock on gender or gender fluidity, but just to note that when I said earlier that comparing the wand to a phallic as a phallic symbol does not denote gender. It denotes the active principle, and that does not encompass sex per se. There is also an important phallic symbolism in the wand of Hermes, which transmits power. Even in the earliest times, Hermes, the messenger of the gods, carried a staff. Originally, it was decorated with white ribbons, later mistaken for serpents because he was the herald of Hades and turned into what we know of today as the caduceus of Mercury. Now that I did not know. This is seen on the breast of the Golden Dawn magician. Let me highlight this little section. It was white ribbons that got mistranslated into serpents. Most likely the ancients knew when they were doing it that the white ribbons would be a double symbol for serpents. Time and Victorianism has softened the phallic implications of Hermes' wand, originally very openly represented as herms. If you don't know, a herm were these posts. They were like guideposts, directional posts, and this is in Greece, in Greek culture, and these herms had erect phalluses. And you know what? Let's do that work. Let me look it up real quick and read about the herm. A real good book for that is, where's my Greek mythology? Let's go to this dictionary of symbolism. Still looking for my Surlot dictionary of symbols. What I did with that. I was looking for it earlier and couldn't find it. Sometimes my books hide from me. Herm should be in here. We got hermit, but not the herm. All right. I can get my book on Greek mythology because I want to just. All right. Robert Graves, Greek Myths 1 and 2. This is the best you can get in terms of mythology. So let me see what he has to say about the herms. Pretty sure this is probably the book to read on the subject of the herms. Just so I don't, by my paraphrasing, I don't want to diminish the symbol and leave something important out, because this is all important to the research. This is what you do. Oh, the herms were considered like a cairn or a pillar. So let's see, we got a few references. Page 37, 52, and 60 and 62. Let's see. This is out of Robert Graves' Greek Myths, Volume 1. So here, 37. I definitely didn't read this previous to getting down, because that was my plan, was to kind of go through it ahead of time and kind of smooth out some of this research. But this is good, because I would like very much for anybody listening or watching to understand the nature of research. It's going to take time. That much is certain. It's going to take time. I'm on 37. I'm on 37. Now I got to break. Oh, Hermes, Apollo, blah, blah, blah. Let's try 52. There's only one brief myth. Even though he mentions Hermes or Apollo, and then like a few sentences later he mentions the 7 pillars. But I sometimes it's too cryptic. I want something that's going to be more or less outright. Oh, I know what a herm is. I'm not going to use Robert Graves. I'm going to use Barbara G. Walker. Barbara G. Walker, Woman's Dictionary of Symbols, Sacred Objects. I'm willing to bet you it's in here. These are another go-to. Great book. Barbara G. Walker. You can't tell me she don't have it in here. Oh, wow. What does she like to bash dudes? A, B, C, E, F, G, H. I would have thought she would have jumped on the chance to discuss the herms. Let's see. I know she did, because I remember reading one. P, Q, okay, Hera, Hercules, Hermes, Sun, Mercury. This is wild, yo. I can see it in my mind where I read it at. Well, either way, I won't get too sidetracked. See, and I forgot about this book. This book, Barbara G. Walker, the Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets. She has a whole section in here on the tarot and the fool and the magician card and its relation to Mercury. But I don't want to drag this out too long, because right now I'm holding my room hostage. I'm pretty sure my wife had a long day, work and all that. And she wants to get to the room and chill. So it says here, the magician seems to have a very difficult card for Lady Frida Harris to paint. Early versions show a central figure with multiple abstract arms, each holding some magical image. Remind me of Dr. Strange or Shiva, right? The quality of balance is emphasized by the caduceus, which rises in the center of the figure. But in the final version, the magician, though centered on an abstract caduceus form, is in a state of activity. The magical instruments seem to float through space as if they were in constant motion, a continuous creation, something ever changing. Crowley says that, in fact, no true image is possible at all. For firstly, all images are necessarily false as such. And secondly, the motion being perpetual and its rate that of the limit, c, the rate of light, any stasis contradicts the idea of the card. Oh, to show it in motion, it would have to be in motion. To draw it in motion will show some form of stillness, and that's actually against every aspect that contradicts the aspect of the card. But they still did a great job in the sublime nature of the card. For Crowley, the magician was the Son and the Word, and being the Word, he is the law of reason or of necessity of chance, which is the secret meaning of the word, which is the essence of the word and the condition of its utterance. Now, all that time they said the word, that brought to mind John 1:1. For in the beginning was the word, and the word was God. For in the beginning was the word, and the word was God, and the word was with God. I could be butchering that too, but that is definitely what comes to mind. So I'm going to leave myself a note here. Eventually, not eventually, I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to grab my Metaphysical Bible Dictionary because it's brought to mind John 1:1. So what you kind of want to do without getting too distracted, or because you can always go down a rabbit hole, you still want to expand your researches, which is why it's important to have a big library. If not, you can have a big PDF library. Most of these books, you can find them in PDF format, especially if you have a Scrib subscription. If you have a subscription to Scrib, you can have all these books that I'm naming and going through, and you can still do this cross-reference by opening up a different tab and pulling up. So I want to see what Charles Philmore in his Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. I just want to look up briefly the word. Oh, here we go. Word of God. Metaphysical. John gives us the following concerning the word. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. The word of God is the divine logos. God in his capacity as now the divine logos, I always refer that to the tree of life. Even though logos just means the word. God in his capacity as creative power includes all the potentialities of being. It is the idea of God, the image and likeness of God, spiritual man. See, a lot of people sleep on Charles Philmore. He was a diehard Christian, but this Metaphysical Bible Dictionary is a beast if you know how to read between the lines and have eyes to see. He's just here said what I just breezed across a moment ago about the purpose of all this magic is to become one with God. And that's the role of the magician. Being the original fount is an impersonal principle, but in its work of creation, it puts forth an idea that contains all ideas, the logos, word, Christ, the Son of God, or spiritual man. The spiritual man of Christ, the word of God, is the true inner self of every individual. Now, we just said the magician, the magus, does the work for all or utilizes all to get the work done. And he just basically made the same statement. I wouldn't be surprised if, man, even if he didn't actively use tarot, I'm pretty sure that by his Bible research and study, he came to some of the same conclusions without even knowing it. Man, therefore, contains within himself the capacities of being, and through his words uses the creative principle of divine mind to create. The Greek logos, which has been translated word, literally means reasonable speech. All this applies. So you see, what I'm getting is a lot of these writers, they don't say it outright, but they drop enough breadcrumbs for you to find your way home. I'm not even going to read anymore. Anybody else interested? Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, page 679, the word, and it's all about the magician card. All about, yeah. So a lot of this makes, now that I'm incorporating, that I'm finally diving into tarot, so much more is making sense now. So that was all that was in the Wang book. Let's see what this book right here, the Illustrated Signs and Symbols Sourcebook. Let's see what they have to say about the magician. And I'm gonna kind of speed it up from here. My wife's been peeked in a few times, like, what's up, Nick? On my room, Nick. And by speeding it up, we're probably still going here in the hour and a half. Magician 78 107 336. All right, let's see, 78 107. Okay, magic not mandala. Oh, signs of a magician. Okay, there's an ancient African belief in certain giveaway signs that describe a practitioner of the magical arts. The description is rather generalized, but here it is. The ideal sorcerer can be male or female, of average height, age between 22 to 26, or alternatively between 30 and 55. Rubbish. Let's see what 107 brings. Oh, see, I highlighted this. Oh, this is the tarot card. Let me read it real quick. Magician, number 1. The first numbered card of the major arcana, the magician or juggler. Oh, see, I just made a mistake. I just realized I had referred the food to the juggler, and that was my bad. Actually, I progressed on the magician, but it all does apply because we know these cards are in sequence, but still, it's not the fool who's associated with the juggler, it's the magician. The first number card, the major arcana, the magician or juggler, shows a man standing in front of a that's why he's the juggler, because all these active principles are in motion. Remember what Crowley just said. Crowley had said, Crowley says that in fact, no true image is possible at all. For firstly, all images are necessarily false as such. And secondly, the motion being perpetual and its rate that of limit. Oh, you going to bed, bud? All right, good night, man. And its rate that of limit, C, the rate of light, any stasis contradicts the idea of this card. So now I'll never forget why the magician is the juggler, because he's working with all these elements simultaneously and they're always in motion. So since they couldn't encompass the idea of motion in the card, they actually made him very still, and he pointed to the active and passive principles, which is encompassing. And then he's juggling, because we see that figure 8, that Les Minskas, whatever they call it. What's the word? Let's go back. That Aurora Boreas, Leminskas. Where's it at? I want to get that word. The word for the figure 8, Leminskas. Where's it at? See, I should have highlighted it. I know it's in here because I remember. Oh, here it is. Lemniscus, that figure 8, that horizontal 8, that infinity symbol. That's the motion. The The table has 4 legs firmly upon the ground, representing the reality of the material world. A stable base or firm house. On top of the table are the symbols that donate the suits of the minor arcana, as well as the elements, the cup, the sword, the wand, coin, and pentacle. These, however, do not symbolize reality. The trickster nature of the magician means that they are illusory. The magician, like the fool, wears the motley clothing of the priest or adept. Somewhere in the red card, somewhere in this card appears the lemniscate or the lemniscus, the lemniscate, the figure of 8 or infinity symbol. On some cards, it's concealed in the swirl of his hair. Okay, that's in the swirl of his hat, but that's his hair. In the Pamela Coleman A.E. Waite tarot, it floats above his head and no attempt is made to disguise it. In this interpretation, the magician points with one hand to the heavens and with the other to earth. This posture says, as above, so below, the physical form of the meaning of the Seal of Solomon. Whereas the fool has a happy-go-lucky approach to life, the magician is far more serious, full of intention. He holds a wand in one hand and a coin in the other, because magicians traditionally use tricks to direct our attention elsewhere. It could be that he intends the coin, the world of matter, to be the focus of our attention, or he could be distracting us from it, alluding to the illusory nature of our interpretation of reality. The magician effectively opens the game of life. And I want to say this: magicians are entirely too serious. That's why the fool perceives him. You have to have a sense of humor. And also, I recognize that the reason why these 2 cards follow one after the other is a reminder that in themselves they encompass a circle, a beginning and the end, and a beginning again. So the fool is the magician is the fool. Laugh. Get your gnosis, your knowledge to laughter. Stop being so serious. Some of y'all need a hug. Y'all so serious. Let's go to Philip Cooper. Teach yourself tarot the quick and easy way. And I'm gonna jump to what he has to say about the Magi, the Magickian. Let's do it like this. See, on my book, I didn't have a good, what is that? I didn't have a good index. My next one I will. The Major Arcana, page 23, because I know how important it is to be able to go through a book and find exactly what it is you're looking for. Okay, so here in Philip Cooper's book, Teach Yourself Tarot, the Magician, synopsis. Great power within an individual, the exercise of will, ability to conquer all and succeed, the power to make things happen. Where else did we just read that? The Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. The magician indicates that the outcome of a situation lies in the hand of the inquirer. That's another thing that's been on my mind. What we call reality is actually a matter of consensus, which is why we get all these distractions, while we're given all of these problem reaction solutions. We're given all of this to keep us distracted so that someone else can make up our mind, and then we agree to what reality is. What's reality? Thoughts are things. If they can get everybody thinking a certain way, then that becomes a thing. And so a lot of people say, oh, that's a distraction. Sometimes pointing out a distraction is the distraction itself, and it causes you to cease focusing on the thought that will become a thing. So a lot of this shit that's fucked up is because all these magicians that focus on none of the bad shit. General description: a young man. Now, remember I said the magician was gender fluid, the hermaphrodite. But here, Philip Cooper says a young man stands in front of an altar. He is wearing a white and red cloak. In front of him lay the four symbols of the tarot suits: swords, wands, cups, and pentacles. Over his head, he has the symbol of eternity. In one upraised hand, he holds a wand. The other hand points down to the earth. The symbols represent the four elements: air, fire, water, earth. The magician can make anything happen. He has a knowledge beyond that of ordinary mortals. Now, what just stuck with me just so far is I have to remind myself that whenever I talk about the elements, you're also talking about Yod Hey Vav Hey, that word of power, which is why I believe authors like Samael Onweor, he always places emphasis on vocalizing certain words, certain tonalities. He emphasizes the importance of, he has an exercise where you drag out the Lord's Prayer for like 8 minutes. I never mastered it, but I still got good results just from trying. So I can imagine what would happen if I actually had stuck with it. Let's go to Dion Fortune, Mystical Kabbalah. Now, the one thing we've been learning is that the magician applies directly to Mercury. Mercury is a direct correspondence to the Sephiroth Hold. So let's try that out. 238. Let's get to that. I think I left a marker. Yeah, I definitely read this one. Got a purple marker for Hold. Hold is actually a Nordic god also. He's a god of like ice or coldness or something. So eventually I'm looking at that and see how that corresponds to the Cabalistic Hold as well as Hermes. Pretty sure it's there. Title: Hold Glories. Hebrew spelling: Hey Val Deleth. Magical image and hermaphrodite. Situation on a tree at the foot of the pillar of severity. Yetziratic text: the eighth path is called the absolute or perfect intelligence. Perfect intelligence. Well, actually, Robert Wayne called it the transparent intelligence because it is the mean of the primordial, which has no root by which it can cleave or rest, save in the hidden places of Gedula. Gedula being Chesed, because there is like a secret path. There's like a secret path that goes from Chesed directly to Hold, right? And so those energies like rain directly down on that. And so forced to form, I guess you could say. Yeah. From which emanates its proper essence. Elohim Zabaoth, God name Elohim Zabaoth, the God of hosts, Archangel Michael, Order of Angels, Beni Elohim, sons of God, mundane chakra, Kokab, Mercury, spiritual experience, vision of splendor, virtue, truthfulness, vice, falsehood, and dishonesty. Remember, we've been discussing that over and over, that the trickster aspect of Hermes is a vice or a reversed aspect of this card. Eight of Wands, so all the eights, because of Lemescape, all of the eights apply to the wand card. So we have the Eight of Wands, applies to the Magician card. The Eight of Wands, swiftness. What's up, bud? Okay, no worries. No worries at all. Don't throw it in the trash, son. Why would you drop it on the floor in my room, though? It's all good. It's all good. No worries. I'll get it up.
Oh, next time I'll remember to throw it in the trash.
Where was I at? Eight of Cups, abandoned success. Eight of Swords, shortened force. Eight of Pentacles, prudence. Color and absolute, violet purple. Bria, orange. Yetzirah, russet red. Asaya, yellowish black fleck with white. Now I paused because one of the dreams I had, but I don't believe it was from the Magician card. I believe it was from the High Priestess. I believe it was the High Priestess. And I saw that Yetziradic color, that russet red. Hmm. Hmm. Could have been the Fool, though. I know that the Empress definitely took me for a ride, but I want to say that could have been the Fool where I saw that russet red. It would still place me in the Zephyr of Hold, but in Yetzirah. Okay. So here she says the two root powers of the universe are represented on the tree of life by Chokmah and Binah, positive and negative force. It is held by the Kabbalists that although each Sephirah emanates its next in numerical order, that these two supernals of the tree of life, the tree of life being the tree being once established, are reflected down and are reflected down it diagonally in a particular way. She says particular way because there's more to it that she's not going to share. This is clearly indicated in the Yetziradic text of the Sephirah, wherein it says that Hod has no root by which it can cleave or rest, save in the hidden places of Gedula, from whence emanates its power at proper essence. Gedula, be it remembered, is another name for Chesed. Binah is the giver of form. Yeah, force and form. Chesed is cosmic anabolism, the organization of the units formulated by Binah into complex interacting structures. Hold, the reflection of Chesed, is in its turn a sephirah of form and represents the coagulating principle in another sphere. I'm trying to see, I don't want to run through all of this. Well, I'm going to read the highlighted sections that I have. Netzach and Hod represent the force and form aspects of astral consciousness, respectively, which is understood. Because human consciousness has made a degree of development in these spheres, their purely cosmic nature is considerably overlaid by its influences. And as human consciousness being developed in Malkuth is a consciousness of forms derived from the experience of physical sensations. The conditions of Malkuth are reflected back through a rarefied form into Hod and Netzach, and in a lesser degree to Tiferet. Yesod is even more markedly conditioned by the rising influence of Malkuth. I'm not going to read this because this is really my Kabbalistic studies. Even though Hod is very much relevant to, these Tarot studies, I do not want to get too sidetracked. So let's go to Godwin's Kabbalistic Dictionary. We're going to look up Kokab. Now that I do need it for. That I do need it for. Okay. So the mundane chakra is Kokab and Mercury. So Godwin's Cabalistic Encyclopedia, Kokab, Kokab. I looked it up before. I don't know why it's not coming right back to me, but I remember having an aha moment. Oops, reading it. All right, and in case. Here we go. Kokab. Hebrew letters KWKB, star, Mercury. Remember, the planets were originally thought to be stars. The sphere of Mercury corresponds to Hove. The planet Mercury corresponds to Beth and the 12th path. Archangel Michael, Angel Raphael. That's why there's always like different gods represented at this Sephirah. Michael's the archangel, and Gabriel is just the angel. So it makes me wonder now if a particular author only references one or the other of these deities, what is he getting at? Intelligence, Tyrael, spirit, Thorath, Olympic spirit, Ophil, metal, mercury, color, yellow, stone, opal, agate, scent, mastic, white sandal, mace, storax, all fugitive odors. Tarot trump, one, the magician, rules Gemini and Virgo, exalted in Virgo, detriment in Sagittarius, and Pisces, fall in Pisces. Okay. I can dig it. Let me look up Mercury real quick. And this is J.C. Cooper's Encyclopedia, Illustrated Encyclopedia of Symbols. And let's go to Mercury real quick. Get what we get from Mercury, just in terms of a symbol. Because what I heard, just what I read in Wang's book about Mercury as a symbol, that that symbol that represents Mercury was just like the mirror of Venus. I always look at Venus as being a mirror because it has the cross and then the circle at the top, where Mercury is like the same, but it has those horns on top. So I liked how he broke it down, that it represents the horns of the crescent moon, the sun, and then the cross, which is fire. And this man, okay, I'm pretty sure he does. Let me go to planets. Back down memory lane. Oh, here we go. Planets. I want to jump to Mercury. Young man wearing winged sandals and cap and carrying the caduceus. Other emblems being the cock and the ram, because Hermes is a phallic symbol. And I was just breaking down that not this, but I did a brief video on the Moon Knight series, and it's worth mentioning that in the Egyptian tongue, the word for ram and soul sounds so much alike that they're actually interchangeable. But in Mercury's case, we know it's not the soul, but it is the spirit, because Mercury is he's the spirit that travels between God and man. His sign combines the sun and moon, see, and fiery and watery elements. However, Wang points out that his symbol carries all four elements because you have the equal arm cross. He is the messenger, the awakener, rhythm, the god of trial and initiation, the mediator, bridging all contradictions, and as his sign combines the opposites, so he embodies both male and female. He represents also, because the cross represents the positive and the negative. You see the positive in the cross itself, but if you remove the vertical beam, you have the negative. So it's male and female, positive, negative, all that good stuff. He represents the interpretative, the power of expressing and interpreting sensation, analytical thought. In alchemy, he is the quinta. Oh, he is the quintessentia. He's the quintessence, huh? Color, purple or deep blue. Metal, quicksilver. Day, Wednesday. Position, center. Age, youth. Flower, Valerian Hazel. Oh, that was very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now we're going to go to Llewelyn's complete book of correspondences. I'm just going to read a few. Now here, under the topic of issues, intentions, and power, we could use this, the magician aspect, as well as Mercury for communication. That makes sense. Enough said. But we have the zodiac Gemini, day Wednesday, Augum Idha, rune Rad, elements air, earth, fire, waters included as well. Direction east, chakra throat, numbers 3, 5, Tarot magician, colors blue, indigo with spirit, orange, peach, silver with ancestors, yellow. This lets me know that everything I've read thus far is correct, and it lets me know that what I'm reading now in this book is correct, because I see the correlations and correspondences that I just read in like 3 other books. Okay, for creativity, again, this falls under the realm of the magician. Zodiac Aquarius, again Gemini, Leo, Pisces, Scorpio. Now remember, in the Illustrated Encyclopedia, no, in the David Godwin's Cabalistic Encyclopedia, he says that there's a chance to fall using this energy if it's associated with Pisces. Well, I think he said it's like reversed in Pisces or something to that effect. Tarot is the Empress, Magician, Swords. Most likely it's going to be the 8 of Swords. 17, 20. All right. Magical, fairies, fates, muses, norns, pixies, sylphs. See the sylphs that we have the air principle, pixies, norns, muses, fates. Let's go to the next. And again, that was under issues, intentions, and power. Now, under the same topic of issues, intentions, and power, intelligence. Again, that's a no-brainer in terms of Mercury. And we see it's the zodiac is Aquarius, Gemini, solar system, Mercury, Sun, day Wednesday, elements air, fire, direction east. Tarot, magician, swords. Gods, Apollo, Enki, Ganesh, Marduk, Mercury, Odin, Osiris, Ptah, and of course, Thoth. Then we have on the topic of magic, well, not magic, manifestation, which I don't know why he wasn't listed under magic, because he was the magician, magic. Let's continue. Now you notice here for magic, zodiac is Cancer. Cancer is the moon in Kabbalah. I'm just following the rabbit down the trail mentally real quick. Let's go to the next one for manifestation. This would be in Capricorn. Of course, Tarot position, chakra root, direction north, season autumn, etc., etc., etc. I hate to kind of read through this, you guys, but I do want to get through it. And at the same time, I do want to give my wife the room so she can relax her game. It is almost 9:30 out here in California. She's been in the traffic all day. She's been gone since 8 this morning. So, but hey, the show must go on. Power, for issues, intentions, and powers. For power, again, zodiac Leo, Scorpio, solar system Jupiter, Mars, Mercury, Moon, Neptune, Sun, Uranus. I'm not going to beat this dead horse. But what I will do is Breakout Manly P. Hall, Secret Teachers of All Ages. Now, this book, I hate that whenever I read it, I never put a bookmark in it because, oh, this time I actually did. Because, man, this book don't even have no page numbers, let alone, yeah, without no page numbers, how could there be an index for you to go and analyze something, you know? Manly P. Hall was raw, but it's a little too raw. Okay, here. The magician stands behind a table on which are spread out a number of objects. Prominent among them, a cup, the Holy Grail, and the cup placed by Joseph in Benjamin's sack. I thought that was a dope reference because a lot of things in the Bible, we take these stories, and because most of us were fed them as a child, we take them as literal stories or just as stories itself, but you never stop to think about why did he place a cup in his little brother's sack, and then for him to tie that to not just the Holy Grail, but the cups, the suit of cups is I thought that was relevant, which is a grounds for research. You get your Metaphysical Bible Dictionary and you follow that rabbit down its hole, and you will see the connections and the correlations. The same way we got the same Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, looked up the word, and we seen that it was an actual description of the magician card. A coin, the tribute money and wages of a master builder, and a sword, that of Goliath, and also the mystic blade of the philosopher, which divides the false from the true. Now, what this really impresses on me, everybody knows that Manly P. Hall was a practiced occultist, he was raw, and you see all these biblical references. And again, I'm aiming at some of you angry people who want to bash the Bible every chance you get, but the Bible is actually a very occult document. This is what brought me to the decision that I got to stop being stubborn. I have to learn to read Hebrew. I have to stay in my Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, because a lot of these things will blow past you if you don't have the proper key, which is why this is called the Secret Teachings of All Ages. That's why the Zohar was written the way it was, with these allegories and stories that might seem like children's stories, but it hides a very deep fundamental truth. And just the mere fact that this man is equating this top science, this occult science, to Bible stories should make you want to think twice. And a sword, that of Goliath, and also the mystic blade of the philosopher, which divides the false from the true. So I want to now, if that applies to the sword and the stone, who could separate the false from the true? The magician's hat. The magician's hat is in the form of a cosmic lemniscate, signifying the first motion of creation. I wonder why they constantly call it a hat. I guess because it rests above his head. I'm going to look into that. I'm going to look up the hat. Signifying first motion of creation. His right hand points to earth. Why did he say his right hand points to earth? Let me go back. His right hand points to earth. His left holds a lot. See, I secretly believe that a lot of this stuff is hidden in plain sight. You see, if you look at, I have the picture of the card up right now. You know that his right is your left, and his right is your left, and your left is his right. It's, it's all a mirror effect. But you see how Manly P. Hall is saying his right. So that's not his right, that's my right. And so I wonder a lot of time when I look at the tree of life, and we know that to the left is Boaz, to the right is Jachin, I actually wonder if it's one of those mirroring effects. And so I'm just going to highlight this. Because secretly, and I know somebody's going to tell me I'm a damn fool for this. Secretly, I think that the pillars on the tree of life are reversed, and everybody is repeating it as such. Because if you don't realize it, then shame on you. Holds aloft the rod of Jacob and also the staff that budded. The human spine crowned with the globe of creative intelligence. Creative intelligence, transparent intelligence, perfect intelligence. We just had 3 different references of intelligence in relation to the magician card. Perfect intelligence, transparent intelligence, and here Manly P. Hall calls it creative. I guess they could all be synonyms. In the pseudo-Egyptian tarot, the magician wears a uraeus or golden band around his forehead. The table before him is in the form of a perfect cube, and his girdle is the serpent of eternity devouring its own tail. So actually, he has 2 different eternity. He has an eternity symbol and an infinity symbol. Over his head is infinity, about his waist, his loins are girded with eternity, procreation. The second numbered major trump is called La Papesse, the female pope, and has been associated with the curious legend of the only woman who ever sat in the pontifical chair. Pope Joan is supposed to have accomplished this by masquerading in malt attire and was stoned to death when her subterfuge was discovered. This card portrays a seated woman. Oh, I'm sorry. I moved on to the high priestess. All right. Now, let's go to, and I'm trying to use the same books over and over. I definitely have others in here I can use. Partially, I'm limited by space, but also I'm limited just to keep it from being 10-hour get downs. I'm trying to keep it simple and use the same books over and over. So this is Art and Symbols of the Occult by James Wasserman. I'm going to go back to the section on tarot. And man, he has some dope images in here. Matter of fact, let me go back, and I want to show you some of these older tarot cards he has in here. See if we can get these in here. You really can't see them, man. Yeah, this is a good book. This is a really good book. The price on it fluctuates. So I would say if you have a chance to get it, don't hesitate, because the price fluctuates and it is a visual aid. It will aid you just visually alone. So the Magician, Beth, House, Mercury, the Magus, Power. He doesn't have too much in terms of going in depth. Man, where was the book I was reading about? Magician. Must have been an Ophil's book, which I happen to not see. Well, all right. I'm going to wrap this up for now. Oh, wait, let's go here. Oh, I know why I read it at. No way I'm wrapping this up. Lost your mind. We haven't got the Paul Foster case yet. He's like one of my tops right now, just in terms of I like his delivery. I like his delivery of information and how he kind of cuts to the base. He cuts to the chase. This is Z's Easy Tarot by Zsuzsanna E. Budapest, but she spells Zsuzsanna with a Z in front of the S. And it says here, Magician, psychic talent for whoever gets this card. If the person is a witch, it is a good time to perform magical deeds to direct psychic force. Matriarchal values overcome the patriarchy. Now, when we gonna get to the good part? Paul Foster case. The tarot, a key to the wisdom of ages. Now, let me get to the Magician. I knew it was some information I hadn't relayed, and I'm saying, what was the book I read that in? It was in here, in this, Paul Foster Cases, the Tarot, a key to the wisdom of ages. And it says here, now, one thing I want to point out, what you see here, the Magician card, this is the Builders of Adetium Magician card, key 1. The Rider-Waite Magician, I want to point out, in the Rider-Waite deck, the Magician is staring at you as to implicate, you and I, this is you, I'm working on you. Well, in the BOTA, the Magician actually happens to be looking down at manifestation, materiality, which I think is significant. And there's little things like that, why I'm certain I'll be ordering the Builders of Adetium. I'll be getting their plain deck and coloring it myself. Key 1, the Magician, this is chapter 5. Beth, B, value 2 means house. The first thing about a house is its location, determined by survey and application of geometry. In its building, architecture, geometry, adaptation of materials, and many other practical applications of science are involved. Time was when the whole art of building was called a mystery and was under the direction of the priests of Thoth, Nebo, Hermes, Mercury. House building is part of Hermetic science. The survival of this idea, survivals of this idea are preserved in the rituals of Freemasonry, because Masonry is about building. Deity is referred to the great architect and things of that nature. Mercury is the astrological attribution to Beth. It represents both the planet and the god. Say it again. Mercury is the astrological attribution to Beth. It represents both the planet, the physical representation of that archetypal energy, as well as the energy itself, the god. So Mercury is a planet as well as a god. And you'll see, like in I think it's Gareth Knight's A Practical Guide to Cabalistic Symbolism, he refers to the planets as mundane chakras. I like that. Understand by God an aspect of universal consciousness, energy, personified. The gods are the Elohim of the Hebrew scriptures, wherein it is written of man, I said, ye are gods. To Mercury or Hermes, Hiram, the Egyptians attributed their 42 books of science, embracing astronomy, astrology, arithmetic, geometry, medicine, grammar, logic, rhetoric, music, magic, and so on. Mercury or Hermes was the great magician and transformer, bearing the caduceus or wand of miracles, which survives to this day as a symbol of the healing art. He was nevertheless only the messenger of a divinity higher than himself, merely the transmitter. We already been over it, not the originator, the channel rather than the source. He's a magician, wizard, and source, all rolled up in one. Astrologically, the Mercury vibration represents intellect. In the color scale used throughout these lessons, it is yellow, the color assigned to spirit and air, but a deeper tint than that assigned to Uranus. The musical tone is the same, E natural. Beth is one of the 7 double letters, so called because they have in Hebrew both hard and soft pronunciations. To every double letter is assigned a pair of opposites. To Beth and Mercury, because the letter and planet designate an aspect of consciousness which destroys as easily as it creates, the pair assigned to life and death. Intelligence of transparency. You got it twice. is the mode of consciousness. Transparency means letting light shine through. Here we have the same idea of transmission that is suggested by Hermes as a transmitter of messages of the higher divinity. Clearly, the mode of consciousness called transparent must be one which affords a free channel of communication, which permits the free passage downward and outward of the superconscious light, which is above and within. Above is the direction assigned to Beth, because the mode of consciousness corresponding to the letter is the superior term of human personal consciousness. As Hermes was herald of the gods, directing the soul, according to Egyptian mythology, through the mysteries of the underworld or night side of nature, so is the superior phase of human personal consciousness, the initiator, and the conductor of human personality through the mazes of life. Whenever I hear conductor, I think of Anubis and Sobek, the crocodile deity. Sobek was a conductor as well. All these are correspondences to Hootie. Willing to bet you there's a lunar aspect to crocodiles. Where was I at? Nice little yawn. Clearly, the mode of consciousness called transparent must be one which affords a free channel of communication, which permits the free passage downward and outward of the superconscious light, which is above and within. We see that in the card itself. Above is the direction assigned to Beth, because the mode of consciousness corresponding to the letter is the superior term of human personal consciousness. As Hermes was herald of the gods, directing the soul, according to Egyptian mythology, through the mysteries of the underworld or night side of nature, so is the superior phase of human personal consciousness, the initiator and the conductor of human personality through the mazes of life. It is the number one consciousness, the ego consciousness, the I am I, which is sometimes called objective mind. But because it is first of all consciousness of the indwelling presence of the superconscious self, we prefer to term it self-consciousness. It is the onlooker, the director, the superior personal mode of universal conscious energy. It is your everyday waking consciousness. But in the sense that it's not this automaton, go to work, poop, eat lunch, come home, watch sports, go to sleep, watch, not that everyday waking conscious, but it is the higher aspect of it. At least that's my interpretation of it. What was I at? The magician is the correct title of key one, used in all versions of tarot belonging to occult fraternities, though it is sometimes debased into the juggler in exotic packs. He said debased, but everybody has their personal opinions. I actually see the juggler in a new light, even though I wouldn't outwardly refer to it as a juggler. That would be in the back of my mind. Magic is simply the ancient name for science, particularly for Hermetic science. The true magic presides over house building because it shows us how to erect actual houses so as to take advantage of occult properties of the earth currents of magnetic vibration. Makes me think of ley lines. The higher phases of magic, moreover, have to do with the building of the house of personality, with the rearing of the temple of spirit, the house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. The magic of light presides over life and death because it has to do with laws and principles whereby self-conscious states of mind initiate and determine subconscious reactions. These reactions make for life or for death, according to the patterns which self-consciousness formulates and passes down to the subconscious plane. I think that's where the seriousness of the magician comes in, because you have to be focused. Because once you reach the level of a mage, of a magician, it's like your subconscious is at attention now. So whatever you focus on is going to become your reality. I've experienced this firsthand in my life, so I know it's true. You gotta guard your thoughts. Now that's where seriousness comes in. That's also where the levity comes in, because I think that's actually where the Joker comes in at. Because even the juggler, because even though you're juggling these, to quote Bobby Hemmett, dark and dangerous forces, you're juggling these powerful objects, which they say if mishandled could destroy the universe, if handled properly, make you master the universe. But at the same time, you have to add a little levity. You have to have some kind of sense of humor, because that drive you crazy and make you drop these same items that could destroy your universe. You know? So where was I at? The magic of life, the magic of light presides over life and death, because it has to do with laws and principles whereby self-conscious states of mind initiate and determine subconscious reactions. These reactions make for life or for death according to the patterns which self-consciousness formulates and passes down to the subconscious plane. Every true magician knows that all his practice has a mathematical, geometrical basis. By the aid of occult geometry, he has traced nature to her concealed recesses. He uses geometrical formula and diagrams in his practical work. Finally, though he knows himself to be above nature, let me say this. When he talks about using geometry, he uses geometrical formula and diagrams in his practical work. That's a veiled reference to Kabbalah. And you can get a math book and get you what's the thing called to draw straight lines. It's slipping my mind a moment, but you can do all of that. And yes, eventually you will come to it if you'll get that revelation, if you focus hard enough. But this is a veiled reference to Kabbalah. Finally, though he knows himself to be above nature, he understands. One moment. I'm going to read this whole section. My wife will have to hold out a little while longer. Finally, though he knows himself to be above nature, he understands that his operations succeed to the degree that his thought, word, and action transmit faithfully the powers of the plane above him. Just discussed it. The greatest magicians know themselves to be no more than channels for the life power, clear window panes through which the light of wisdom within the house of personality streams forth into the world. I believe it was here where he broke down that window is just a door for the wind. The arbor of roses over the magician's head corresponds to the letter named Beth, because an arbor is the simplest type of shelter. Red roses, symbols of Venus, represent the desire nature. Here, they suggest that the power which the magician draws from above is modified or qualified by desire. The red is passion, desire. Desire, willpower is the only thing that makes your magic bussin', make it pop. The only thing that makes your ritual impactful and come to reality. Desire and will. This is true of all self-conscious activity. Every moment of our waking consciousness is motivated and conditioned by some type of desire, and that could be good and bad. The horizontal figure 8 over the magician's head is the ancient occult number ascribed to Hermes, because remember, all the 8s are associated with this key, this number 2. This horizontal 8 is also a symbol of the Holy Spirit. It means dominion on the horizontal plane, that is, dominion in material affairs, because one of the oldest symbols of matter is the horizontal line. In Egyptian mythology, Tareret is the goddess of the horizon. She represents that. So in effect, she represents that figure 8. In contrast to the fool's yellow locks, yellow locks, huh? Well, he sure does. The black hair Oh, in contrast to the fool's yellow locks, the black hair of the magician signifies ignorance. Yet this ignorance is limited by knowledge, for a white crown encircles the magus's brow. It passes round his forehead at the location of the brain areas particularly active in self-conscious mentation. His uplifted right hand suggests power drawn from above. The wand it holds aloft is a double-ended phallic symbol. It is phallic because the nerve force used to maintain the reproductive functions may be purified and sublimated by certain magical procedures. This purification is suggested by the whiteness of the wand. It is 2 points, whiteness. There's 2 points exactly alike in form, remind us of the Hermetic axiom: that which is above is as that which is below, and that which is above is as that which is below, for the performance of the miracles of the one thing. They also indicate subtly that the lower manifestations of force here symbolized are not destroyed nor atrophied in the process of purification and sublimation. Finally, the 2 points refer to the duality of all magical operations, which are of 2 great classes: those leading to the higher expressions of life and those resulting in death. We're going to pause it for a quick second. Pause it for a moment. All right, another delay, but hey, it's all good. I want to read that last passage again, which was I'll read this last paragraph again. His uplifted right hand suggests power drawn down from above. The wand it holds aloft is a double-ended phallic symbol. It is phallic because the nerve force used to maintain the reproductive functions may be purified and sublimated by certain magical procedures. The purification is suggested by the whiteness of the wand. Its 2 points, exactly alike in form, remind us of the Hermetic axiom: that which is above is as that which is, the Hermetic axiom: that which is below is as that which is above, and that which is above is as that which is below, for the performance of the miracles of the one thing. They also indicate subtly that the lower manifestations of force here symbolized are not destroyed nor atrophied in the process of purification and sublimation. Finally, the 2 points refer to the duality of all magical operations, which are of 2 great classes: those leading to the higher expressions of life and those resulting in death. The magician's downward pointing left hand. See, Manny P. Hall was trying to throw a crook in the game. Sneaky Manly. Sneaky Manly. The magician's down pointing left hand symbolizes direction of power to a plane below. It makes the gesture of concentration. The pointing finger is that attributed to the planet Jupiter. Abundance. From this finger, palmists judge the degree of a client's power of leadership and direction. It is the executive and determinative finger. The gesture plainly conveys the notion that concentration is the secret of the direction and control of forces below the plane of self-consciousness. Of the double gesture made by the magician's hands, Dr. Waite says, this dual sign is known in very high grades of the instituted mysteries. It shows a descent of grace, virtue, and light drawn from things above and derived to things below. The suggestion throughout is therefore the possession and communication of the powers and gifts of the spirit. The magician's white inner robe has the same significance as the white garment of the fool. The serpent girdle signifies wisdom. And eternity biting his tail. Dr. Wade says here it indicates more especially the eternity of attainment in the spirit. The serpent is colored blue-green because it is also a symbol of the serpent force, which is utilized in all magical practice. Blue-green, well, blue definitely is a color associated with, blue-green, I get it. Because Hod is blue and Venus is green. That's why it's blue-green. Serpent is colored blue-green because it is also a symbol of the serpent force, which is utilized in all magical practice. This force is related to the sign Scorpio, which in our color scale is associated with blue-green. The magician's red outer garment represents desire, passion, activity. Its color is that of the planet Mars, which astrology associates with action and initiative. This red robe has no binding girdle. It may be slipped on or off at the magician's pleasure. That's fire. That's power. That's letting you know the ability to command these energies. We hear Mars and everybody thinks Mars is going to get you, punish you, restrict you. But here it says, I'm going to read it again. The magician's red outer robe, the magician's red outer garment represents desire, passion, and activity, because there's a time for rest, there's a time for labor. Its color is that of the planet Mars, which astrology associates with action and initiative. This red robe has no binding girdle. It may be slipped on or off at the magician's pleasure. This means that self-consciousness may enter into action or abstain from it according to circumstances. Thus, this bit of symbolism is connected with the power of choice or of selection, characteristic of self-consciousness. The table before the magician represents the field of attention in modern psychology. The word table has also affinities in language with the word measurement. Yeah, tablespoon, tables of, whatever. Yeah, okay. Inasmuch as to classify and arrange is a tabulate. Note that the corners of the table had to be squared and that the cylindrical legs, which have the capitals like ionic columns, required the use of compasses, and by their capitals suggest the orders of architecture. So don't get confused by the word capitals. Capitals are essentially like you have a pillar. At the base of the pillar, you have the pillar itself. Then the pillar is usually adorned with something whimsical, might be vines or whatever. Those are capitals. You can look it up. C-A-P-I-T. Let me spell it for you. C-A-P-I-T-A-L-S. It's an architectural term. It serves a double purpose. I won't even say a trifold purpose. The chapters add a means of support, a display of wisdom. Like I said, they use the ornament, so it looks looks beautiful, pretty. So that's the trifecta: wisdom, strength, and beauty. On the table in front of the magician, writes Dr. Wade, are the implements of the 4 tarot suits, signifying the elements of natural life, which lie like counters before the adept, and he adapts them as he wills. As elements of natural life, they refer to fire, wand, yod, water, cup, hay, air, sword, vav, and earth, coin, or pentacle hay. They symbolize also the 4 words and correspond to the letters IHVH, which is what I just did, walking myself through it kind of slowly, but that's what it was. The magician's problem is to arrange them in proper order. In ceremonial magic, these implements are the staff, the cup of libations and divination, the magic sword, and the pentacle or talisman. I was just talking about Tararet. Tararet is the goddess of talismans. On the pentacle are written or engraved words, numbers, geometrical figures, and sigils. These are determined by the nature of the magical operation to be affected by the powers they represent. In this instance, the sigil or the pentacle is the pentalpha, the 5-pointed star or pentagram. Of this sign, Eliphas Levi says, the pentagram expresses the mind's dominion over the elements. And it is by this sign that we bind the demons of the air, the spirits of fire, the specters of water, and the ghosts of earth. It is the star of the Magi, the burning star of the Gnostic schools, the sign of intellectual omnipotence and autocracy. It is the symbol of the word made flesh. The sign of the pentagram is called also the sign of the microcosm. Its complete comprehension is the key of the 2 worlds. That might be why it's the 2 card, number 2 card, as above, so below. It is absolute natural philosophy and natural science. From the foregoing quotation, you may come to understand the nature of the work to which the magician in tarot is directing his powers. Be careful not to take the first sentence of the quotation too literally. There is a meaning behind the surface meaning. Find it for yourself. So that first sentence he's talking about is where he says, where Eliphas Levi says, the pentagram expresses the mind's domination over the elements. And it is by this sign that we bind the demons of the air, the spirits of fire, the specters of water, the ghosts of the earth. Now, for me, I translate that as the what did he say here? The demons of the air, those would be sylphs, right? The spirits of fire, those would be salamanders. The specters of water, those would be undines. And the ghosts of the earth would be gnomes. These are just the magical elements. So when he says bind these demons, spirits, and ghosts, he's speaking of commanding these elements. Remember, the magician card has been misappropriately, according to some, labeled as the juggler because he's juggling these elements. However, Eliphas Levi didn't see it as juggling. He saw it as binding these elusive, powerful aspects. So it's still the same. Still the same. In practical everyday life, the implements of the magician are the 4 life essentials: light, fire, wand, yod, water, cup, hay, air, sword, vav, and food, pentacle, hay. The combination of these life essentials in proper order and proportions is the task of every practical occultist. Finally, the 4 implements correspond to the 4 ancient esoteric admonitions, which sum up the whole practical application of occult law. These admonitions are: 1, to will, which is your wand or your backbone. 2, let me keep it solid. So to will, I just said the backbone, fire, wand, yod, to know, water, hay, to know, water, hay, cup. 3, to dare, which would be vav, air, sword, and to be silent, which is why he probably said ghosts of the earth, because that's the earth. To be silent, hay, earth, pentacle. The last, in some respects, is the most important. Occult means hidden, and one of the first duties of a practical occultist is the practice of silence. That's the Hermetic path. That's why this is known as the Hermetic path. I was looking for this line. And see, my only thing is, I don't know how. Well, I can see why this path, this understanding of silence, which is very powerful in and of itself, it comes into conflict with this information age, this age of Aquarius. And so, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I'm just writing myself a note. Hermetic path equals silence. Possibly the root of secret society silence. Worth looking into. Actually, you don't need to look any further. Hermetic means to seal when nothing escapes. Hard, planet Mercury, magician card, silence. That's implied, at least at this point. They did mention that the tarot cards tend to morph according to the tools that the magician of each age requires to use. So maybe it's possible that once we get deep into this Aquarian age, maybe the Hermetic aspect of Mercury, of knowledge and magician, maybe that Hermetic silence will give way to something else, but I doubt it. And then the silence doesn't mean that you don't say a word. Like they just said, the silence indicates that you are careful with your words. The magician's garden is the antithesis to the barren height whereon stands the fool. The garden is fertile and productive. It is itself a symbol of the subconscious plane of mental activity. Oh, I love it. That's why his garden is so fertile, because of the nature of his thoughts, his mentation, his mind, not his brain. Again, thoughts are things. So what you focus on, that's your garden. What are you feeding your garden, man? From this teeming soil come forth the productions which give shape and form to the ideas of the magician. He is shown as a gardener like Adam, of whom an old legend says that he was put into the Garden of Eden to grow roses. That I never knew. There's an old legend that Adam was put in there to grow roses, man. To have correct thought. You feel me? I'm gonna highlight this whole section. The magician's garden is the antithesis to the barren height whereupon stands the fool. Now the fool had a rose. Now we know that the fool represents beginning and end. Maybe he yoinked the rose from the magician's garden, you feel me? And walked off smelling that joint. The memory of it, the memory and the act itself, more than enough for this whimsical creature, right? Like Adam, self-consciousness is the namer of objects. Like Adam, personal self-consciousness is formed by the power of the Lord, who is that which was, is, and shall be. Like Adam, the personal self-consciousness is formed of the dust of the ground, because self-consciousness is an aggregate of myriads of tiny sense impressions, dust. Dust motes. Originating in that cosmic operation of the life power, which makes the environment of personality and is the true ground of basis of all self-conscious experience. Beneath, writes Dr. Waite, are roses and lilies. We see that below waist. Those roses and lilies actually more or less terminated around the genital area. pretty sure that's significant because you're supposed to subdue your passions. Beneath, writes Dr. Wade, are roses and lilies, the floss campi and the lilium convallium, changed into garden flowers to show the culture of aspiration. Red roses typify Venus and the desire nature. White lilies represent aspect thought, untinged by desire. The roses are developed from the 5-petaled wild rose, and thus they symbolize the number 5, which has for its geometrical correspondence the pentagram. That's fire. The roses are developed from the 5-petaled wild rose, and thus they symbolize the number 5, which has for its geometrical correspondence the pentagram. As symbols of desire, they represent the phase of some subconscious response to self-conscious direction, which has to do with art, invention, and adaptation of principles of abstract truth to practical ends. Now, in the book of correspondence, we saw that remember, it was called the creative intelligence, transparent intelligence, perfected intelligence. So all of this is like self-confirming. And then you can also say too, if you're a skeptic and if you're willing to weigh both sides mentally, everybody's drinking from the same well. So of course everybody will say the same thing, right? Because all desires are related to sensation, there are 5 roses corresponding to the conventional 5 senses. Let me count these roses real quick. Lilies have 6 petals. And in the cross section, their flowers show the hexagram or 6-pointed star, which is a symbol of the macrocosm. 6-pointed star is also Star of David, cube, and the cross. Y'all gotta forgive me. I'm tired too. I've been up and moving since 6 a.m. this morning. Where was I at? Lilies have 6 petals, and in cross section, their flowers show the hexagram or 6-pointed star, which is the symbol of the macrocosm. Pure science concerns itself with the study of the powers of the macrocosm and with the laws of those powers, because these laws and forces operate in the 4 worlds or planes mentioned in chapter 1. And the number of lilies shown in the picture is 4. Thus, all meanings of the letter Bet, the number 1, I gotta say 2. The symbol of the magician referred to powers of self-conscious phase of personal mental activity. These powers are directed primarily to the control of forces and things below the self-conscious level. The energy utilized comes from above and from superconsciousness. It is fixed and modified by acts of attention. So where your attention goes, your energy flows. Concentration is the great secret of the magical art. True concentration is perfect transparency. There we see the transparent intelligence, in which personality becomes a free, unobstructed channel for the passage downward and outward of the superconscious radiant energy. Herein is the secret of true volition, and Alive as Levy's tells us all magic is in the will. And there's Crowley who says, do what thou wilt is the whole of the law. Love is law. What do you say? Do what thou wilt is the whole of the law. Love under law. Look it up. You know I'm tired. But I want to quote this correctly because of what he just stated about will being basically the support for your magical workings, right? So let me get this Crowley quote right and hopefully put it in proper perspective, because a lot of people think that do what thou wilt means you can walk down the street slapping babies and old ladies. It has nothing to do with that. Okay, it says, do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. Love is the law and love under will. So the magician soon discovers, any true magician soon discovers that he can fuck over people easily. If you so desire, yeah, you can do it. But just like that lemescate above his head, which it signifies or symbolizes beginnings and endings, things coming back to where they started. You don't want to be going out flexing those muscles, abusing people just because you can. Because the thing is, love is the basis under it all. So you do what thou wilt, is the whole of the law. But the law is founded on love, and so the will and desire I'm okay, let me say this also as a caveat. Once you learn this power that you have, of course you're going to use it. And you're going to use it, believe it or not, in a very temperamental, childlike state. The only difference is, are you going to be a child of 3 or 4 or a little pouty teenager? But you're going to do it. I went through that phase very briefly until I comprehended that Crowley statement about love being the foundation of do what thou wilt. And, so I just say, as he just pointed out, you focus mainly on being able to hold your concentration. Most people learn to focus and hold their concentration based on something or someone they don't like and not on self. You want to always apply these things to self. Don't get caught up in allowing your attention to go and flow in a direction other than yourself. And also, you'll come to the realization that harming somebody else is actually akin to harming yourself. How can you take poison and literally hope and wait for someone else to die? The magical process can allow that to happen. You can, spit flame and fire and poison somebody's direction and watch them wilt away. But again, that's their own energy. And then to be honest, there's very little you can do to someone if it ain't within the cards to do so. That's not so much a demonstration of your power. It's actually a demonstration of you being in alignment with cosmic will and universal law. So having said that, let's wrap it up. I want to thank everybody. I don't know how long this has been, but I appreciate you. Thank you for hanging out. We're progressing. I mean, I hope you feel as though you're progressing, because I do. I feel as though I'm progressing quite nicely. I am enjoying the revelations as they come. What I will definitely do is the next time I get down, which will be on the High Priestess card, I will make certain that it's not late in the day like this. I don't feel crunched or pressed for time, because I definitely would have loved to read all of that in the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary concerning the word. I didn't go through Barbara G. Walker's Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets concerning Mercury, and I never found that book on the Herms, on the Herm pillars. And I was certain it was in Barbara G. Walker's book, but I maybe when we get to the High Priestess, I'll double back a little bit. I'll find it. We'll double back and I'll discuss it. Again, thank you. If you haven't already, it's been 3 hours and 10 minutes so far. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe, share it. And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. And I'm going to say peace. Enjoy the rest of your evening where you at. And we'll do it again real soon. Peace.